I mean, it's part of existence, but man, there is so much more to existence. There is so much more to life than just suffering and pain. And yet, life is going to be made up of the things that we focus on. Yeah, but you have to live in this society. I don't have to do anything except for stay white and die, man. And neither do you. Everything else is going to be a choice. So now we can start to look at what it is that we put our choices into. You've chosen to be here. And I don't mean this in the sense like, you chose to be here. I mean this in the sense of like, you chose to be here, man. You could have done almost anything else. You could have ditched, you could have stayed home, you could have hidden, but you chose instead to come here. That's because if I don't come, I get in trouble. Okay, then you've chosen to come here instead of be in trouble. And that's a good thing. It isn't like, well, you chose this. It's a, you chose this. And so there might be something up here on the board that goes along with pain, happiness, love, compassion, which is freedom, autonomy. And when we deny people their autonomy, when we deny people their sovereignty, when we deny people the opportunity to make choices for their lives, maybe we're denying them some aspect of their humanity as well. In fact, maybe we're denying people the most important aspects of humanity, because these are the things that are most important to us. The more of this that you do, the more pain and happiness and love and compassion and experiences and all of these just swirling spikes and up and downs of life that take you on this roller coaster, and you get to the end of it. Very few people get to the end of it and are like, oh, finally. Normally it's like my whole kingdom for just 5 more minutes. Because there's one thing that we almost all agree on. It doesn't matter how long life is too short. And it's not too short, period. It's too short once you figure out all of the things that there are to do out there. And you'll say things like, oh, I wish I knew then what I know now. What would you do differently? I don't know. You ever think about this? Like maybe the life that you're living right now is the life that you're living because you've already lived once before and you were given the opportunity to go back and fix all of your mistakes. Maybe this is the life where you fixed all of your mistakes and it's turning out perfectly and you just don't even know it. Like if I were to be up here and I were to trip and fall and hit my head, and let's pretend like you cared, and I was dying, and I said, my dying words, go get the glick for Miss Gomez, and I go, I died. Now, what's an obvious question you'd have? What's the glick? What's the glick? And then you guys would go to her and ask her, well, what's the glick? And she might say, I don't know, I just met him, and he talked a bit about, I don't know, Walmart, whatever. He seemed to have an obsession about Walmart for some reason. So then you guys are like, okay, so whatever the glick is, it's probably at Walmart. So then, field trip, you all go down to Walmart, and you go in and the person greets you at the door, and then you ask them, like, you guys have glicks? And the guy's like, yeah, I don't know what they are though. Like, people come and ask about them. I know that they're over in the frozen food section. So then you guys all go over to the frozen food section, and you start taking, and then you would find someone who works in the frozen food section, and you ask them if they know what the glick is, and they're like, I don't know. I think it's a slang word for something. I know they're red. That's all I know. So you mean like the box or the food? And he's like, I don't know, man. I just stock them. So you guys go there and you take all of the red items out of the frozen food section. You make them a big pile, and you can look at it and you go, I'm sure there's a glick in there somewhere, but what is it? I don't know. That's part of the problem with a glick. If I hadn't been like, first off, we're assuming it's even at Walmart. It's just because I talked about it. And then even if you go there and you make a big pile of all the things that it's likely to be, you don't even know if you have found it. And sometimes love and happiness can be like this. Unless you know what love is, and unless you know what happiness is, you don't even know where to start looking for it. And even if you know where to start looking for it, you may not even know that you have found it. So if you go onto Google and you type in what is, I'm not sure what it is now, but it used to be the #1 thing that would come up is what is love? Because people would try to figure out, like, am I in love? What does it mean to love? And then you'll hear people say things like, I mean, I love a person, but I'm not in love with them. Does that make sense? And that's part of the poverty of our language in English, that we don't know, we only have that one word. I love my mom. I love buffalo wings. You might love your sister. Hopefully, you might love your spouse. Hopefully you love them all in very different ways. But we use that, unless you're from Kentucky, but we all use that same word, love. Have you ever sat there and wondered, am I in pain right now? am I really in pain right now? Am I really suffering right now? This is an inescapable reality. If you're suffering, you know that you're suffering. And so, at the very least, I'm sure we could populate this chart with a whole bunch of things about what it is to be like this wide spectrum of human experience. But if that's the case, it might be difficult to find people who are fully human. It might seem, therefore, that we might have to experience some things to become fully human. What else? What are some of the things that you know about yourself?
I know how I want to be cared for and loved. I know a lot of things about myself.
Do you?
Sometimes. I got lost, sorry.
No. Well, it is an interesting thing because, so then there's a lot of implications. So like you're saying, maybe it's comfortable because we like people who remind us of ourselves. And maybe there's a tinge of narcissism that's in there. And there also could be a tinge of something that we're trying to heal. In other words, maybe there's a person who's a lot like me, except for the fact that they haven't, or maybe it's except for the fact that they've individuated, or they've dealt with some sort of a significant issue in their past that I haven't, and maybe it's like a better version of self, perhaps. Or, and there's some dark aspects there too. You know? So it says that he's an American existential psychologist. So what do the existentialists concern themselves with?
Your existence?
Yeah, matters of existence, meaning and purpose in life. And there's something interesting, and there's a few interesting things in what Amanda was talking about. And we're populating this list. You can start to see how intricate this web can get. Because obviously we've only mentioned pain, happiness, love, compassion, but there's a lot of things here of what we might think about what it is to become human. And even to understand what it is to be human in the first place is getting more and more difficult. I mean, it's always been difficult for us. Remember the story of Diogenes from last semester? Plato's trying to discover the definition for a man, and he just comes up with a featherless biped, something that has no feathers and walks on two legs. So the story goes that Diogenes grabs a chicken and plucks all the feathers out of it, and he starts trolling Plato, walking around saying, "Behold, Plato's man." One of the greatest philosophers to ever live. He can't come up with a definition of what it is to be human. And today we start to get a sense of it. We're almost like, okay, DNA. All right, so maybe it has to do something with DNA. Well, now we have, so if a person, let's say, is missing their arm, are they still a human being? Of course, we talked about that last time. 2 arms, yes. 2 arms and 2 legs, yes. At what point do you lose organs or something to recognize that you're no longer that same person? Well, you never do. You're always that same person. So that tells us that you've got something that's the you, that's the psyche we were talking about last time, which is separate and distinct maybe from your body. And so now we say, okay, so we've got a psyche and a body, but all that work, it still tells us nothing about what it is to be human. If we're able to take your consciousness now, and we're able to upload it onto a hard drive, and restore your consciousness, which is going to be, we don't even know what consciousness is really entirely, or even where it comes from. We have some definitions for it, but let's just say we can do that. And then later on, we can take your consciousness and download it into a new body, in fact, a cybernetic body. Is that cybernetic body with your consciousness, is that human? Does it enjoy all the same rights as you do? And we might think like, wow, that's pretty out there. I don't know, man, your children, your grandchildren may be having to deal with that very issue. And we see with the advent of artificial intelligence. Is artificial intelligence, is it human? Well, why would it be? It doesn't have our DNA. No, but it is our child. It is born from us. It is our thoughts. It is our experiences. It is the totality of our history, of our planet, of our species. So now, do we give it certain rights? I don't know. Fortunately, I'm probably not at the age that I'm going to have to deal with a lot of those sorts of things. But you guys are, your children are, and so it's worth thinking about. What is it to be these things? What is it to be human? What is it to be alive? And in order to be alive, well, Is it just biology? Or is it a collection of these psychological conditions over time that comprise this capital Y-U that we talk so much about? Because we intuitively know that there is something that's a you, because there would be no thought processes. You can go back to, we mentioned him just in passing before, Rene Descartes. He has this idea that I know I exist. How do I know I exist? Just because I think. The fact that I can form this sentence, I think, therefore, it means I exist. So I think, therefore I am. So at the very least, you know that you exist. And now you start thinking about what the totality of these experiences are that comprise the you. Yeah, it's pain, it's happiness, it's love, it's compassion. And as I've told you many times, life is suffering. We don't get to choose not to suffer. We can choose what we're going to suffer for. And in that is freedom. I mean, it's part of existence. But man, there is so much more to existence. There is so much more to life than just suffering and pain. And yet life is going to be made up of the things that we focus on. You know, we know what's important to us because by what we spend our money on. Wherever your treasures are, well, that's where your heart's going to be. Wherever your heart is, that's where your treasures are going to be. We know what's important just by what we pour our money into. We complain all the time, like, oh my God, I have no money for this. Well, why don't you have money for the things that you enjoy? Because I have to have a car, I have to have a house. You can have a smaller house, you can have a used car. You don't have to do any of these things, but we choose to. Yeah, but you have to live in this society. I don't have to do anything except for stay white and die, man. And neither do you. Everything else is going to be a choice. So now we can start to look at what it is that we put our choices into. All of us who are here right now, you've chosen to be here. And I don't mean this in the sense like, you chose to be here. I mean this in the sense of like, you chose to be here, man. You could have done almost anything else. You could have ditched. You could have stayed home. You could have hidden. But you chose instead to come here. That's because if I don't come, I get in trouble. Okay, then you've chosen to come here instead of be in trouble. And that's a good thing. It isn't like, well, you chose this. It's a, you chose this. It's the life that, yeah, you were dealt a card of, you were born, you didn't ask to be born. You're in the family that you're in, you're in the community, and you didn't ask for a whole bunch of parts of your life. But within the life, the card that you've been dealt, you can make these choices, and that's how you own your life. And so there might be something up here on the board that goes along with pain, happiness, love, compassion, which is freedom, autonomy. And when we deny people their autonomy, when we deny people their sovereignty, when we deny people the opportunity to make choices for their lives, maybe we're denying them some aspect of their humanity as well. In fact, maybe we're denying people the most important aspects of humanity, because these are the things that are most important to us. These are the experiences, but man, these are all, some of these up here are choices as well. Like happiness, we don't even know what happiness is a lot of times. Happiness is one of those things that's, you know, we will distinguish between happiness and joy perhaps, but like happiness is, or joy are those kinds of things that you're walking down the sidewalk on some idle Tuesday and it hits you and you go, huh, I'm joyful right now. Some experience, some scent that you pick up. It reminds you of something, you know? Something that your mom makes, some food. Enjoy it. Not to be dark, man, but the food's not going to be there forever because your mom's not going to be. Maybe learn how they make it, and then you're going to smell something at some point that's going to remind you of all of these wonderful things that didn't seem so wonderful at the time. Someday you guys are going to come across some ugly, musty smell, and you're going to go, Scallon's class. I remember some fun things from back then, hopefully. But here's the thing. You didn't seek out one day to say, I'm going to go find happiness today. Happiness can't come, you can't pursue happiness. Happiness has to ensue, has to come from something that you're doing, because what makes you happy today might be different from what makes you happy tomorrow. It's probably different from what made you happy 10 years ago. What's going to make you happy 15 years from now? I don't know. I'm still trying to sort my own life out. I can't tell you what's going to make you happy. What I can tell you is we do have a lot of people telling us what we should do that will make us happy, yes? And those are some of the most miserable sons of bitches we're ever going to meet in our lives. You know? Do this. Why? Because you're supposed to. It makes you happy. Maybe not. Maybe go out and experience things. And that's all of what these are. These are experiences. Pain is an experience. Happiness is an experience. Which of these things should you appreciate? Yes. Yes. Everything, the whole gamut of human experience. And then you're going to realize that being with someone who's too similar to you means too few experiences, because you're just redoubling your life, but you're experiencing yourself. And that might be okay for a lot of us, but going back to it, why would you be with someone who's very different? Because now you can experience life through their perspective as well. The more of this that you do, the more pain and happiness and love and compassion and experiences and all of these just swirling spikes and up and downs of life that take you on this roller coaster. You get to the end of it, and very few people get to the end of it and are like, oh, finally. Normally it's like my whole kingdom for just 5 more minutes. How can you expand that interval? You can't expand the interval of your life. But what you can hopefully do is to pack more stuff into it. It's like a suitcase. You're going on vacation, you grab 2 t-shirts and a pair of shorts, you throw it in your suitcase, and you get there, and you pop it open on your hotel bed, and hopefully you're embarrassed by how little is in your suitcase. I'm not ready for this trip. Maybe something better is to jam as much as you possibly can into that suitcase. Think of that as your experiences. You can't get a bigger suitcase. You can't make a longer life. But you can jam more stuff into it, so that when you get to the end of it, maybe you get to the hotel and you've got like t-shirt sleeves hanging out the side of it because it wouldn't close because you jammed so much into it. And then you pop it open and you're like, oh man, I overpacked. Maybe you haven't overpacked for the afterlife. Maybe you haven't overpacked for the life that you lived. But now here's the problem. You go through and go like, man, as wonderful as all of this is, it's just, I don't know, I wish it was more. And then what you do is you find somebody else who's got their suitcase, jam-packed as well. And they're different from you. Enough in the same that you have similar backpacks, you have similar values and things that you can get along with them. And then you pop open their suitcase and you guys can inspect each other's suitcases, which, by the way, takes a lot of trust. It's like letting someone look at your playlist. And then you inspect their suitcase and you realize, wow, one lifetime is just not enough because there's so much in it, dude. So you get to experience life through somebody else's perspective, which means you get to live twice as many lives. It's one of the values of reading so much. Why do I read so much? Because I've gotten to live Rollo May's life. I didn't have to go through all what he went through. I could get the gist of it. I've lived Voltaire's life. I've lived Marcus Aurelius' life. I've lived all of these lifetimes. And still you sit there and go, more, more, more. Because there's one thing that we almost all agree on. It doesn't matter how long life is too short. And it's not too short, period. It's too short once you figure out all of the things that there are to do out there. Because the problem in life is not that there's not enough to do. The real problem in life is when you realize there's so much to do, and yet life is so short. So that's the pain of it. When you realize there's so much to do and so little time. And you'll say things like, oh, I wish I knew then what I know now. What would you do differently? I don't know. Because who knows if you did things differently, if it would turn out differently. I don't know. What if it turned out, you ever think about this? Like maybe the life that you're living right now is the life that you're living because you've already lived once before and you were given the opportunity to go back and fix all of your mistakes. Maybe this is the life where you fixed all of your mistakes and it's turning out perfectly and you just don't even know it. I don't know. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?